The problem we will tackle in today's lesson is how can we create one button that we can reuse over and over, and when we have a change, we can apply that change and it will apply globally everywhere. So let's say you've created some buttons and for any reason you may not be happy with the size of the button, with the color of the button, with the text on the button. You want to adjust any of the settings. You would open your widget blueprint and then you would go here and then you would start changing settings and like change whatever settings you want to change, and then you would do that on all the other buttons. You can imagine how painful this is if you have many buttons and you want to experiment with things to see how they look. So that's what we're going to learn today. Instead of changing things manually like this and copying the settings and pasting the settings, that's just painful. We should not do that. I've done that in the past, but that's why we're here, to learn and to avoid mistakes. Okay, so I'm going to press Ctrl space, and what we need to create is another user widget. So right click and let's go to user interface and let's go to widget blueprint. Click and let's select user widget. This will act as the base of our button. So click on it, and since this is the base, let's call it WPP, widget blueprint base underscore button. Let's double click this and let's add from the common elements here button. Click and drag. This will be our root element. Click on text and add that here because every button needs a text. What I'm going to do, because we want to walk this step by step, I'm going to compile and save, and I will go to my widget blueprint here and I will go to my palette here and I will go here. User created, click and expand. And if you scroll all the way down, we have widget blueprint base button. Click and add this here to our vertical box. And now we have our button and we have the text on it. So if you press Ctrl D to duplicate this is our button. Now let's say I want to change the color. Click on the button and let's go to tint and let's make it darker, for example. Click compile, save, and let's take a look. This is now darker. Beautiful. Now, of course, this is not enough. Of course, we want to change the text, the color of the text, the color of the button, and so on. So how can we do that? Well, let's go back to our button here, the base button. And the first thing we need to do is to turn the text block here into a variable, because if you go to the graph, you will not see the text. So let's go back to the designer, click on the text, and here on the top right corner, click on is variable to set it to true, and the number 56 I want to remove it, so this just says text block to keep things organized. I will do the same on my button here, so I'm going to call it button instead of button 50. Now let's go back to the graph, and as you can see here we have text block. Beautiful. Click and drag and let's get this text block. Now we said that we want to adjust the content of this text block. So here we have text, content, and we have the default text placeholder. Let's call this actually text placeholder. Okay? Basically, when you're learning Blueprint, you may want to pay attention to the names we have in our details panel and then search for these names. So let's go to the graph here and let's click and drag and let's search for text as a start. Here you can see content and we have get text and set text. We also have text here, but this is for the tooltip. It's not the content. So in this scenario then, we need to set the text. Click, and this is the text we have now. So we want to connect the execution pin to event preconstruct, and this will run every time we click on compile. So now if this is empty, click compile and go back to the text here, it's empty. If we say here, drink water and compile, it will say drink water and so on. So if you want to modify the text here, we still cannot do that, and that's because we need to promote the text here to a variable and expose that variable so we can edit it. So click and drag and release the mouse. The first action we see, promote to variable. Click on this and let's say here text, so let's call it button text content. The more descriptive we are, the better. And here under instance editable, or the eye icon here, if you click, this will also enable this for us. If you compile now, this will allow us here under default button text content. So default here is the default group on any variable you create. So all these variables, they all have the category default, including the text variable we've just created. So if I want to change this to something else, I can call it, for example, my settings. So I'm going to compile and let's go back, and as you can see here, we have my settings. So with this knowledge now, I hope your mind is like doing wow, that's amazing. Mine did. You can imagine you can access any of these from modem to variables, export them, and then edit them from any user interface. It's beautiful. Now, I want to change this to something more serious, so let's call it text placeholder. It's like I'm drinking water, don't worry about it. Let's go back to the graph now. Let's say I want to edit the color of this text here. So here we need then color and opacity. So let's go to graph and let's bring the text block duplicated and let's search for color and opacity. So here we have appearance, set color and opacity. And here under variables appearance, we also have set color and opacity. These are basically the same. You can also try if you want. So set color and opacity, they both will do the same. So if you use one of them, just stay consistent. Now, I'm going to remove this or this, it doesn't really matter. And I'm going to connect this here and I'm going to click on compile. Now, if you go back, this will change to a default setting that is somehow hard-coded here. So what we need to do in color and opacity, you need to click and drag and promote this to variable, and I'm going to call it text color and opacity, and let's compile, and you can see here this is the default value of this variable. So now if I set this, for example, to white color, and I'm going to also set this to instance editable or click on the eye icon, and I will set the category from default to my settings. I will compile and save, and now if you go here, we have now the ability to change the text. So let's say start, and let's say this one about, and this one exit. And of course, you can change the color of the text to any color you want. So let's say this is semi-red. Now, let's say you want to do the same on the buttons here, and I started with the text and the default value here, because let me show you something. So I'm going to create another example here, widget blueprint, and I'm going to select user widget real quick, and let's say button example, okay? So I'm going to copy the button from here, Control C, and I'm going to paste it here, okay? In the new widget blueprint we've just created. Now this button, I'm going to go to the graph and I will click and drag and I'm going to get, and we need to adjust its appearance. So here under style, appearance, we have normal, hovered and so on. We want to adjust these. Now, before we adjust any of them, we have settings that we predefined earlier. And if we try and search for appearance, for example, so if you search for appearance, we have get style, set style, and so on. So if you set style and you connect this here to event pre-construct, and there are no settings here, and if you compile, we get an error, and that's because we need to make button style. There is no settings here, so click and drag and make button style, and now we have normal, hovered, pressed, and so on. So now if you compile again, the error message is gone, but also what is gone is the settings we had earlier. So we had a blue color with some roundness and so on. So that's something to be aware of. And now if I decide to cancel this and compile again, we will get back our settings again. So no need to freak out, but there were some scenarios where I just lost my settings for good. So be careful when you work with this. So now you get the idea and you get the main concept. So let's bring the button now. So I'm going to delete this example. We don't want it. So let's go back to our base button and let's click on the button here, click and drag, get the button, and let's search for style. We have appearance, set style, and let's connect this here and we can compile again. See if you get an error message, that's fine. Click and drag and let's search for make button style. And now we have normal, hovered, pressed, and so on. So under normal, you can also click and drag and we have slate brush. So make slate brush is the setting we want. We have tint, draw as, tiling, image size, margin, image, outline settings. All these settings here are the same settings that we see on our button here. So if you click on any button and you go to style, normal here, you see image, image size, tint, draw as, outline settings. They are the same settings here. It's called slate brush. Okay. Now, if you compile, of course, you will see the button changed now to white color and so on. So we need to adjust its settings. Tint, we can click and drag and make slate color and change the default color here from pink to, let's say, gray. and let's say the outline settings, I will click and drag make slate brush outline settings. We have corner radius, outline, width, and so on. So all these settings are settings we can expose. So let's say now I want to be able to change the color of my button. So here I'm going to call it button color, and here instead of my settings I'm going to call it, for example, 01 text settings, and let's take this one here, add it under it, and let's say now for the button settings, the button color as a start, I'm going to call it 02 button settings. And let's say for the corner radius, I'm going to promote it to a variable, and let's call it button corner radius. And the outline, so we can also promote it to a variable. So let's say this is the button outline, and we can add the corner radius and the button outline to the button settings like so. And we can also make them instance editable. Now, if you compile and save, let's go back to our blueprint here. We can see start, about, exit. We have text settings, and we also have the button settings. So if you want to change all the radius on all the buttons, then we need to do that from here. So let's say it's 5 by 5 by 5 and so on. If you compile, this will change everything here, but it doesn't change, and that's because we need to change from draw as image to rounded box. Okay, now if you compile, I think we should see 5 by 5. Yeah, we do. Now this is not 5, it's slightly more, and that's because under the rounding type, this is set to have height radius. We need to change it to fixed radius. Okay, so fixed radius. Now if you compile, this is now 5 by 5 by 5 and 5. So these are settings. The more you work with, the more you are going to be familiar with them. If you want less spaghetti in general, you can click and you can collapse this to a function, and let's say button style, and this is now a function. If you open it, you can change all the settings, because don't forget, this is the normal. We have hovered, pressed, and so on. So let's say for the hovered, we want to click on these elements, Ctrl+C and Ctrl+V, and paste them here. And here on the button color, we want to create a duplicate of this. So click on the variable on button color and click on it, and let's say this will be the hovered button color. Connect that here. And we can keep the corner radius, the same variables we are using here. This is fine. And for pressed, we can also do the same. So I'm going to duplicate the blueprint we have here, and I'm going to connect it to pressed. And I'm going to duplicate my variable, and I'm going to set it to pressed. Now, the setup, for the first time, it might look intimidating, but trust me, it is not. It's maybe some work, but once you set it up once, you can now apply the settings you want to apply once, and they will be applied everywhere. So that's something to keep in mind. But also to keep in mind that this also works not only on the visual elements, but the functions and the programming of your buttons. If I show you here an example, so here we have Unreal Engine and I have my project. I'm going to click on play, and I'm going to move to this monitor. This is a touch input monitor, and we have a problem called double clicking. For example, when I click on the layering mode, it will not work because the clicking is happening twice. The same can go for the compass. It's not working, it's not showing. And the same for other buttons. I click, nothing happens. The way to fix this is to adjust the button, the base button, to add a little node, and it will fix. So now you saw it's not working. Let's press on escape to open back Unreal Engine. Let's open our taskbar where I have my base buttons, and here if I click on any button, we have the ability to edit it, edit base button. So click here, and we will learn later how to add the functionality. By later, I mean in the lesson now. But I also need to add something called do once. So I'm going to search for the node do once. I'm going to add it, and I'm going to make some space here to make things look nice. And after the call, I'm going to add a delay node. So let's search for delay. Let's add that nice little delay. Let's change the duration to something very small, like 0.2. And let's connect completed here all the way to reset. And if you want to make your connection look nice, just double click on your connection, and that will add the reroute node. This should fix my double clicking problem. I'm going to click on play, and here's the project again. I'm going to bring my taskbar, and I'm going to click on layering mode. It works. I'm going to click on the compass. It works. I'm going to click on filter search. It works. All these buttons, and I have so many buttons. The fix was very simple because I have a base button. The button we are learning how to do today, something like this. Now, if you want to learn how I've done this, if you want to learn more about Blueprint, check out the link in the description and let's get back to the lesson. Alright, I think that's more than enough about the style of the button because there is just one final piece to the puzzle. Right now, if we want to add any event to our buttons here, we can. And that's because we need to call the events. Right now, if you click on this button here and you go to events, we see on clicked, pressed, released, hovered, and so on. But on this widget blueprint, right now there are no events. So we need to create the events manually and we will also see them. This is very easy. So let's go back to our base button and let's go to the designer here. Let's take a look what we have. We have our button and the button here, if you click on clicked, we see on clicked, on pressed, on released, and so on. So let's say on click, okay? And let's say the same button, we want to have another event on hovered. We can also do that. Now, we want to connect an event here that will call or be called. And we can do that by creating an event dispatcher. So if you click here on the plus to create an event dispatcher, and let's give this a name that we can recognize, for example, on button click, okay? And let's say the next event on button hovered. So on button hovered. So on button clicked, if you click and drag and release, we will see multiple actions. We need the first one, call. So let's connect this, and for hovered is the same. So click and drag and select call, and let's also connect this. Now I'm going to compile and save, and let's go back to our menu here. If you click on the button here and scroll down, we see now clicked, hovered, and any other event you're going to create. Now, our buttons here are truly modular. If you want to change the color of the button, you can do that. And now the order of these is also the same order of the buttons we have. So if I want the radius to be below, we can do that. So we have the button color, hovered button, and pressed. So click and drag, sometimes it's a little tricky. Now, if you compile, you will see that the order changed. Now, you can change these individually if you want, or you can do that once from here. So the button style here. On hovered, you can make it lighter, and on pressed, we can make it darker. So here, I want to bring pressed and connect it here. Now, this is for the pressed, just to make sure. Let's make it much darker. Now, if you compile and click on play, you can see it's hovered and it's pressed. Beautiful. The final thing we need to do is to assign some events when we click on these buttons to make sure they're working. So the way to do that is to basically go to one of these buttons, click on the plus here, and we can print a string as a test. So let's say this one will say start, and the next, which is I think this button. So that's why it's really important to name our buttons. So here I'm going to call it, for example, start. This one is about, and this one is exit, like so. So click on about button and let's add a new event for it. Click on the exit button here and let's create an event for it. So about, we can print another string, and let's say this one will say about, and for this one here, exit, we want to simply quit the game. So click and drag and search for quit. And now if you click on play, you will see the buttons. So start will print start, about will print about, exit will simply exit the experience. So now I can go back to the designer and I can click on these buttons and I can give them some padding, let's say 4, and I can click on these older buttons here and I can delete them because they are not modular, but our new buttons are modular. And for the font here or the text, I would keep it at white and I will compile and save. Now, because we deleted some buttons, we have maybe some old elements, so let's delete them as well and let's compile and save. This is the tip of the iceberg because there are many other variables and settings you can access. You can also create more than buttons. The potential here is huge. Let me show you an example of what I've did in the past. So here I have one of my projects. I can click on play, and here I have buttons with animation, with outline, with pictures, and so on. This here, the taskbar, I have the hovered color, the image icon, the desired size of the image, and some other settings. So here we have the button settings and the text settings. I can change all these. Let's say I want to add skew to my text. I can do that. So let me increase the setting. You can do that. So these are highly customizable. You would create one button and then adjust it in any way you want, and they will be unique from each other. Here's another scenario where I have the image and the text and so on. I really hope you found this lesson useful. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and if you want to learn much more about Blueprint, I have a Blueprint course you can also check out in the comments. There are more than 45 hours of lessons where we dive deep into Blueprint to create highly interactive experiences. Again, thank you for watching, stay hydrated, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.